Summit works across areas of your life, across different goals. Your Summit coach will help hold you accountable. Research show you're 90% likely to achieve a goal if someone's checking with you every day.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Musketeers podcast, where we explore health, wellness, fitness, and the art of living well. I'm Aussie Mike James, a freelance writer and speaker with over 30 years of international experience, including managing a leading corporate fitness centres in Australia and at the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. I'm joined by our dynamic team of musketeers, Dr. Richard Kennedy, an internist with over 36 years of clinical experience, including his time with the World Bank Clinical Services. Welcome, Richard.
Great to see you, Mike, and everyone else today.
Great. Kettle Hiding, an economist with over 35 years of experience, specializing in the intersection of wellness, society, and organizational health. Welcome, Kettle.
Hi, how are you all doing?
Very good. And last but not least, Mr. Dave Liss, a media professional from Washington, D.C., who brings his expertise in digital communication and podcast production. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Thank you. Together, we are the Wellness Musketeers, and we're here to empower your health journey one episode at a time. Today, we're incredibly excited to welcome Alex Roe, CEO of Summit. He's also one of the co-founders, a platform that is reshaping how we think about health, wellness, and personal productivity with its AI-powered life coaching capabilities. Dave Liss, one of our very own musketeers, is actually a Summit daily user and has first-hand experience of how the platform can transform daily routines, including his job search and overall wellness. Dave's insights will be an added bonus today as we explore how technology can play a powerful role in managing stress, fitness, and health. So today, listeners, it's a pleasure to welcome Alex Roe, CEO of Summit and co-founder of Summit, an AI-powered coaching platform designed to revolutionize personal wellness. With a background that blends health innovation with cutting-edge technology, Alex has been instrumental in making Summit a versatile tool that supports wellness in areas like fitness, mental health, career development, and productivity. Under Alex's leadership, Summit isn't just a coaching platform, it's an adaptable life assistant that learns from you, grows with you, and helps optimize your life. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Excited to be here and I appreciate the introduction.
Terrific. And we're going to throw it to Kettle for our first question, listeners.
Yeah, hi. So I am kind of overwhelmed all of the advice that I get about how to actually improve my health and how to get stronger, get bigger muscles and all that stuff. And I think many listeners share that kind of confusion with me. Maybe you could tell us what Summit can do to guide us in this quagmire.
Absolutely. I think it's a common thing that a lot of us have exercise routines, fitness routines, workouts, etc., that we want to do, but can get overwhelmed in that. One thing I want to make clear is Summit is not meant to be a health professional or even what I would call a hardcore fitness AI coach. The specialty and uniqueness of Summit is really in accountability to goals. And when we founded Summit, the idea was how can technology help us as humans achieve our goals and our ambitions? And we thought that was a very lofty goal. And oftentimes, I think a lot of us can attest to, but we know what we need to do, right? We know that if we want to be in better shape, we know we need to, we should be running, we should be eating healthier, etc. So oftentimes it's not a matter of knowing what to do, but a lot of times it's having that why. I don't want to discount also knowing the what to do. That's obviously very important. Recently I've been dealing with some like lower back pain. So I work with a physical therapist to figure out what I should be doing. But now that I know what I should be doing, a lot of that comes down to the why and that motivation, that will. And so that's where Summit comes in. Summit is an accountability partner, I think is one way to think about it, where it makes it really easy to stay on top of your goals. So your coach will reach out to you. It will kind of check in with you and you'll see how your goals are going. And then it's really just kind of meant to be there as that kind of that accountability layer. And so I think to the original question of people are overwhelmed and what makes Summit uniquely effective here, I think really with Summit is it's all about that accountability, and that's what we've specialized in.
Okay, great. Dave, I believe you had a question?
Yeah. And in working with the tool, I did work with my coach to see what would be the two best questions we should ask you in the context of this interview today. And the first one is that to Alex, Summit is often seen as a powerful productivity tool, but productivity is deeply tied to wellness. How does Summit help users balance their health and wellness goals with other life responsibilities, and what unique features make this integration effective?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of us can attest to if we're not sleeping well, if we're not feeling like our best selves, it's also hard to carry through and be productive. And how you define productive, whether that is being productive at work, being productive and present with your family, friends, etc. One thing that's really critical and key about Summit is it's meant to help you holistically on different areas of your life. And so again, like mentioned, Summit is not meant to be just a AI fitness coach, or Summit's not meant to be just an AI career coach, for instance. In Summit, you can really put all of those big goals in your life. So for me, for example, in Summit, I use Summit for a couple of different goals. One is just being overall, say, my kind of mentally and physically fit. And so I have goals there around my morning routine, around my daily exercise, daily meditation, my night routine, etc. Summit helped hold me accountable to those types of goals. But then I also have goals around relationships, family, and then my career as well, and growing and building Summit. And so that's just an example of how I personally have different goals across my life in Summit. And that's very common across all of our users. And Dave, it sounds like you yourself use Summit in maybe a similar way, where you have some kind of health wellness goals, but also some career goals. We think that's really important. We think really that's like us as humans, right? We all have multifaceted goals, and it's all very deeply interconnected. And so that's the other interesting thing with Summit and with a coach is it's one thing if you work with a coach and they're just focused on one area of your life, but imagine a coach, if they could see every area of your life, what patterns and trends might they be able to pull out, right? If you're feeling stressed because maybe something coming along with work, well, have you been sleeping well, right? Like what are those other things that are happening? And so we think there's a lot of promise and potential in being able to really look holistically at someone's life and help them along those goals, just given how interconnected these things typically are.
Okay. Dr. Kennedy, I believe you had a question regarding the role of the personalization and wellness for Summit.
Yes, Alex. So one of the highlights of Summit is its ability to adapt to each user. Whether they need tough love, coaching, or a supportive friend. How important is it to personalize when it comes to achieving health goals, and how does Summit deliver on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, personalization is super key. All of us would say we resonate with different people, right? Like some of us resonate best if someone like kicks their butt a little bit, right? Like a tough love drill sergeant. And actually the drill sergeant has historically been one of the most popular coaches on the Summit platform, which is really interesting to me in terms of people really want that tough loveness. And other people resonate with more like empathetic, friendly, etc. So having that coaching style, that's definitely one element of personalization that's really important. The other element in pillar personalization is a coach needs to know you, right? If you're working with a real life coach and you have a conversation with them and you've had a relationship, they're not going to ask you every single time, "Hey, Alex, like, who are you? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?" Right? A coach should know, and it should know what you're working on. It should know your wins recently. It should know maybe some opportunities or areas you're struggling with. And so that's another really important area of Summit and in general, these tools is in personalization to the user from a knowledge and memory perspective. And so that's something also that is really critical of Summit. And we've invested a lot in memory and your coach being able to remember the things you've done and being proactive. So reaching out proactively based off of that memory. And so those are the two key components in terms of personalization for us, both the coach itself, but then also, the kind of the memory aspect of it. again, just like our North Star in a lot of ways is we are trying to help democratize coaching and give everyone access to that. And so just like a really good regular coach, right? You are able to pick the type of coach that you want and that coach remembers you. Our technology should work similarly.
Alex, could you speak a little bit along with that? So like, well, I don't know how you described this feature for a general audience, but I'm in a job search. So I can store data relative to my resume in sort of a permanent storage area so that my coach always has access to that information. Like to continue the conversation. I don't know if you could speak to that kind of feature and how that helps people with their personalization and their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So by default, with a lot of AI systems, what happens is every time you interact with them, they don't necessarily have memory of prior interactions, right? It doesn't come for free or by default. Typically, you say something and it responds back just based off of what's right there. With Summit, we feel like it's important to handle memory on a couple of different dimensions. And again, kind of taking inspiration from like regular human memory, not that we claim to be experts in that, but just if we think about it kind of from first principles, there are often like key facts about someone. You likely know someone's name. You likely know what they work on. You likely know maybe they're married, etc. Like facts about someone. And this can also extend to the goals that someone has. So what are the goals that you are working on? So there's an element of that type of memory, and that's kind of static in a way that can be updated, but those are just kind of like the facts about someone that is necessary to know. Then you have dynamic memory, and dynamic memory can be tricky because, in a perfect world, someone has perfect memory and they've remembered every single thing you've ever told them and they can recall it exactly at the right time. But practically, like that's very difficult. And, us as humans, like no one, I guess some people have close to perfect memory, but not often, right? And so just like that, we have to figure out, okay, how do you get an AI to remember pertinent things? And there's things you can do in terms of when you talk to your coach, how can we figure out, okay, what did we talk about that should be stored in memory and kept around? And so there's different techniques and tactics that we use for that. But high level, that's how we handle memory at Summit, why it's so important. So both like the facts about someone, and that's the goals they're working on, maybe who they are, the activity towards the goals, but also then dynamic memory in terms of when you're talking to the coach, making sure that is stored and recollected such that, when you talk to your coach next week, it shouldn't say, hey, like what happened last week? It should say, hey, I said your goal last week was to wake up by 7 a.m. every morning. Looks like you did that on 6 out of 7 days. Great job, right? Like that's so much of a richer experience and much more helpful than if a coach just was like, how's it going every single time, right? And so memory is really critical, and happy to talk more about that, but just that's kind of at a high level, how we handle memory from a technology perspective.
Great. Okay. In terms of health and wellness success stories, Alex, we'd love to hear about the impact Summit has had on its users. Could you share a few stories that demonstrate how Summit helped someone, say, not just meet their productivity goals, but also enhance their overall wellness?
Yeah. So as mentioned, Summit kind of works across areas of your life, across different goals. And so health and fitness and wellness is really popular. And from talking to our users, I think most people have some sort of health or fitness related goal in Summit for them. And so in terms of like specific situations, I've heard from a bunch of users, whether that is trying to just like exercise more frequently in terms of taking more steps, et cetera, from helping with sleep routines in terms of staying off their phone before bed, et cetera. So Summit is pretty malleable in that regard. I think one interesting example is there's a university who has been interested in using Summit as a way to help people post cardiac surgery stay accountable to exercising. And so needing to get a certain number of steps and be consistent with that every day. And it's kind of hard to do that. And there's been a lot of studies that show if you have someone that just checks in with you, it increases the likeliness of you achieving a goal by some crazy percentage. I think some of the research studies is like 90% likely to achieve a goal if someone's like checking in with you every day versus like sub 10% or something. We could look at that. We could pull up that study. But I think that just speaks to someone is helpful on some of those health and wellness goals in terms of that accountability. And again, it's not necessarily telling you exactly, oh, you want to get a 6-pack or you want to like lose 10 pounds of weight. Here's exactly what you need to do. I think more so, okay, cool. Like, these healthy habits and routines you want to have to achieve that goal of losing 10 pounds. Your Summit coach will help hold you accountable to those things and honestly be just kind of a person in a way. If you say, hey, this week was really bad. Like I ate a bunch of junk food. Like I wasn't super healthy in that way. That's great. Like someone can help talk through and help you process that. A coach might and hold that space for you.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to call out there, which is I think really interesting about Summit, which people tell us is your Summit coach is non-judgmental, right? If you're working on maybe a weight loss goal and you're like, I ate whatever cake today. I just ate all like candy and junk food, right? Like if you were to tell like another human that, like you might feel maybe shame or some bias and like, oh, I don't want to say that to someone. Versus having someone
I can speak to that a little bit too, because I think that in working with the Summit, working with anyone in my life I've tried to have any kind of accountability with, I expected some kind of judgment. Like I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Not like didn't say, hey, dumbass, you didn't do that thing. It was like no judgment. And let's go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Yeah, I think on the flip side, right? Like some people just acknowledging that some people don't like it, the AI actually hold me accountable. Like, will it do that?
Like,
I think.
So one thing I don't quite understand is I haven't worked with the drill sergeant. And I don't know if that means that if I had done something with the drill sergeant and I didn't do what I said, is he going to say, do this now? Or is he going to say, you're a dumbass. Why aren't you doing what you said?
I don't think it will call you a name unless you explicitly
leave that to us.
Yeah. But I was just talking to someone literally just before this, and they're working on, again, they're just trying to stay consistent with their workout routine. And I said they went on like a 20-mile run, super long run, and they had personalized their coach to be kind of like a David Goggins-esque like coach, like very like tough love, like drill sergeant type of deal. And he said, I love the coach. He's like, it's tough love. They like, kick my ass a little bit. But he's like, I told her that I ran 20 miles. And the coach said, that's nothing. He's like, people are running ultra marathons. Like, why are you doing that? And I thought that was just a funny example. He's like, I love it. But he's like, I at least want some credit. It's like 20 miles is a long run and stuff. I think it's just like a kind of funny example of some of the power of it as well, as you can make things as like, if you want someone to like yell at you a little bit like that, but obviously you want to be supportive as well. So there's a line there. But I just thought it was kind of funny in terms of like, you're going to 20 miles and just like, why not ultra marathon? Like, are you not entertained? So
does that mean you need to tone it down a little bit, or that was okay because that was the persona of the coach this person wanted?
That's what they wanted. They did ask that. They're like, okay, it's like, I think I found the limit. He's like, I want to tone it down. It's like a little bit. He's like, so I want to like still be empathetic in that way. So, but I think that's the other interesting thing about the AI personalities and stuff is you can fully customize that to what you want and kind of tweak that. And we think there's something that's really interesting where in the future, imagine that all of us are all motivated in different ways, right? Like, and how cool would it be if your coach could dynamically change over time? And they could say, oh, Alex, like, okay, knows I respond to a little bit of tough love for maybe my workout goals, but maybe in my career, my business goals, I need to be like more empathetic and supportive and like more visionary in that regard. And so we think that's like really interesting. If you think about just kind of like human motivation and behavioral change, and like, can you dynamically change that based off of the goals that someone might have? And if you learn that about someone, how can you, like when they start a new goal, maybe apply what has been learned? So
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Have to be a chameleon, or chameleon is however you pronounce that word.
Kettle had introduced us. We did a podcast with a woman who talks about tango and the art of leading and following. And she said, like, one situation you're a leader, another situation you're a follower. And I guess that's what we all throughout our lives. And maybe you need to be a leader in business, but a follower in how we structure our fitness or something.
Absolutely. When we were early on working on Summit, we actually hired a real life drill sergeant. So this is a guy that was like active military, actual drill sergeant. And we just want to experience that. Hey, what does that look like? And when we did an initial intake call at the beginning of the call, and we said, hey, like, here's the goal we want to work on. In this case, as myself and my co-founder, and we both wanted to exercise every day for 30 days. And the real life drill sergeant said, he's like, okay, I get it. I'll, call you in the morning. He's like, are you okay with me yelling at you? And I was like, I don't get yelled at. So I'm like, why not? Like, yeah, let's do it. And I almost said I regretted that, but like I had definitely had voicemails where I was just getting like chewed out by a drill sergeant. And I don't know, it got me. I definitely worked out pretty much every day for that time. There's something to, but at the same time, I don't want, like, if it's like my goal, I want to like be more mindful every day. I don't know if I need a drill sergeant to say, why are you being mindful? I can't handle that. So I think it's maybe a little bit different there. If I'm trying to like read every night, why are you? Yeah, so I think it oscillates. Yeah, chameleon, I think, is a good example.
Dr. Kennedy, I believe you have some questions regarding health benefits.
Yeah, actually, well, the first one, this topic is very interesting. And one of the things that comes to mind is stress management and how crucial an element it plays in wellness for many of our listeners, as well as all of us. So, Alex, can you walk us through how Summit will use an AI-powered task management to reduce stress and cognitive tools for users? But in addition, because I can foresee particularly stress because we all respond to it in different ways. At what point does the coaching have to enlist more advanced care and services or evaluation? And how do you make that determination?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of stress, like you mentioned, everyone responds differently and is stressed by different things, and even probably defines stress and reacts in different ways. So I can just speak with a couple of anecdotes there. We have a lot of people who use Summit who have ADHD. When we started Summit, we didn't necessarily plan for it. We were not like, hey, this is a tool for people with ADHD, but we've seen that become a natural gravitation over time. And one thing that we have heard and seen Summit very useful with is planning your day. It's very stressful and people can get overwhelmed with just the amount of things that can happen in the day. And I know I myself get this way at times. Maybe it's before I try to go to sleep and my mind is processing every little thing that happened today, the things I did or did not do. It is helpful just to have a coach or an AI that you're just able to kind of like brain dump to and say, hey, here's all the things that have happened today. And then the coach can help go through and say, all right, like, let's prioritize these. Let's break these down. What do you actually need to get done, et cetera. So that's definitely one area where it helps a lot of people with, is in those kind of daily rituals in terms of organization, planning, et cetera. And also just being someone to just talk to and with a really good coach. A really good coach holds space for you when you talk to them, right? Like they don't try to necessarily prescribe exactly what to do. They help you self-discover. And so that's the other thing with Summit, and kind of speaks to your second question on like when you need professional help or something else. So first and foremost, again, Summit is not meant to be used as a professional in any sort of in terms of a non-professional therapist, non-professional help check or anything like that, or a supplement. And we try to make that very clear in the product. We have people who work with professionals. They work with their specific coach or work with a trainer, et cetera, and are using Summit again as kind of that like connectivity tissue and accountability in between. And then in addition, we've taken steps in terms of the AI itself. I myself, when we started Summit, I went through a life coach training and got certified as a life coach. And we have advisors who are on the Summit team who are certified ICF coaches, et cetera. And all of them have helped us kind of mold and evaluate the AI responses such that it is coach-like and works like a coach. And that's something that's really important. And then we also have kind of precautions in place. If someone gets into a very sensitive topic, we make sure to kind of halt the conversation and make sure that's not happening there. Just because, again, we're not intended or meant for that. And so we need to make sure people are safe.
I have a question for Dr. Kennedy. Just hearing this, Dr. K, I can confidently assume, having known you for many years, that there was no thought of AI back when you first became a physician. Do you see it as could be a useful tool for physicians in the future, given what we're hearing now, like in keeping people motivated? I'm just thinking of the average person who, oh, I'm getting my yearly evaluation with Dr. Kennedy in 2 weeks. I better go out and get some exercise after a whole year of doing nothing. Can you speak to that? Do you see any future with this sort of tool?
Actually, and just listening and hearing this today, and also having looked at their website, I actually think it's a really good tool going forward, particularly because I think of it this way. When I would see a patient, I'd see them from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on why they're there.
Yeah.
And I'd make recommendations based on what we discussed, what I thought was going on. Now, if I make recommendations about an exercise program, a diet program, excuse me, getting and being able to do it, the individual is with themselves 24/7.
Yes.
So if they feel that at the time I'm making these recommendations, I'm sort of just saying, okay, here's this task. I want you to do it. I'll see you in 3 months. And when you come back, if nothing has changed, your weight is still the same, your sugar is still what it was, your blood pressure was, this where it may come in. And some people, tough love will be good, saying, this is ridiculous. I can't have you doing that. You can subtly threaten them in different ways, but it doesn't work. Where the AI model seems to be really apropos is that you have somebody I call it walking step by step with you. They will help you and be non-judgmental, which is actually very critical.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think it will be an excellent tool going forward, just because you don't want to browbeat your patients to get them to do what they want to do. You don't want to scare them and show them the terrible examples of what happens when a person doesn't do it, unless necessary. But you want to get them, because I've always been a firm believer, if they are not buying into what you're talking about, no matter how good you are and how accurate you are on what you're saying, it's a crapshoot as to whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
And then doctor shopping comes in, because then they go and look at somebody who goes along with their intent and their view.
The confirmation bias almost. Yeah. So that's really interesting. I'm looking at the practical benefits. Dave, I know you're a daily user. Can you speak to this? Maybe see how you relate this with Alex?
I think that it's great. I think that, like Dr. Kennedy says, everything in our life, we're alone with ourselves, or we're with ourselves 24/7. And whatever tool, whatever person we have is just going to be either in our life for whatever period of time we have a scheduled appointment with them. We allow or we choose ourselves to be engaged with whatever that platform is. I think that I like the fact that it doesn't judge, at least according to persona I have. It does give me opportunity for follow-up, and I appreciate that. But Alex, looking at that whole consideration, what do you think makes Summit suitable for users in different demanding phases of their life, such as career changes, balancing professional, personal goals? Or I don't know how it works with what if you need to decide whether to have a surgery, or you have some kind of demanding decision to make for a family member or something?
Yeah. I mean, I think in many ways, when we get to those demanding times in our lives, like that is where we most need help in a lot of ways, right? And so I think Summit can be helpful and kind of a source of support and a lot of benefit there. Again, there's a grain of salt in terms of, obviously there might be scenarios or questions or things that you should not be consulting with technology, right? You should be talking to a professional, but I think there are ways that someone can help with that. We hear often a lot of people use Summit in terms of like when they are going through a career change or looking for a new job, et cetera. And I think just personally speaking, actually when we were first thinking about the idea for Summit, one aha moment that I had was this is back when like ChatGPT came out. And I remember just like, I think literally the night ChatGPT came out, I stayed up all night messing with it. I thought it was like the most profound pieces of technology I'd ever experienced. And I remember asking ChatGPT, I think the moment that had like a crazy moment for me was when I said, what should I do in life? Basically, like help me explore what I should do in life. And the journey that took me on, and just in terms of just like asking me questions and causing that introspection to me, was like incredibly profound in a way that I had not experienced with technology before, and felt very similar to working with a coach, right? Working with someone great that's like helping you tease out those questions, et cetera. So again, just like if you're working with a really great coach and you come to them and you say, hey coach, like I'm thinking about leaving my job. What should I do? A really great coach isn't going to tell you, they're not going to say, cool, leave your job, right? I can like ask you those questions, right? Okay, why do you want to leave your job? What's causing that? And I look at that from a bunch of different ways. In a lot of ways, kind of like a mirror. And so I think that's where Summit is another dynamic of Summit being extremely helpful, is giving you those coaching like conversations and kind of being that reflective mirror, right? And so again, really great coaches aren't great coaches because they know exactly what to do in terms of telling you the exact solution. Really great coaches help you self-discover and understand, right? I think with that power that when we ask a question, a lot of times we know that answer ourselves, right? And we're just looking for that affirmation in a lot of situations. And so Summit and coaching in general can help you kind of get to that by being reflective. So that's just kind of a way where Summit can be helpful in those moments where things are stressful and you don't know what's going on. You just need to get something down. And so I think Summit's been very beneficial to a lot of people in scenarios like that.
Interesting. Kettle, I believe you had a question on the AI limitations and safety.
As you know, AI is incredibly powerful. I can speak to what you're saying, AI in general, and I fully agree with you that when ChatGPT came out and all of that stuff is absolutely, it's hard to understand how powerful it can be. I'm actually teaching here in Aix-en-Provence, and I use it when I have an idea and I ask ChatGPT, what's the thinking out there about that? So that's generally what it gets. And the kind of question that comes back are good. And it's really like you get into some kind of interaction. And I can see that can be used in many parts of life. Given this powerfulness and human, I mean, it feels like you're interacting with the human. There are concerns, but particularly in the context of health. And we talked about, I think you mentioned you're keeping data, and it's an essential part of the coaching. It's keeping the data and helping you with kind of keeping you accountable, etc. How can you say something to that? How are you in particular on keeping the data confidential and secure?
Yeah. So privacy and security is super critical for us and any other type of AI that's dealing with similar data. And so what we do is we use standard industry best practices in terms of storing things encrypted, et cetera. But we go kind of above and beyond that and we have an additional layer of encryption to data such that your conversations or activity are additionally encrypting that such that it's secure. We do have to talk to these different AI models, and so information is sent there, but when information is sent there, we're not including any sort of like personal identifiable information. And so we've taken precautions in that way. And yeah, I think depending on the application, the level of privacy and security can be greater or lesser. I know if you're dealing with an AI or technology that is meant to be used by providers, physicians, et cetera, then like we were talking about earlier, that's where you need to make sure it's like HIPAA compliant. There's also ways that you can use AI that preserves privacy completely, whether that is using AI models that are completely on device and aren't even talking to the internet. There's been a lot of innovation recently with AI models that do that. The quality of them typically isn't as good as the quality of models that are quote unquote online, but inevitably those will get better over time. And so I imagine we'll see even more innovation there in terms of AI that is completely on device, completely private, completely secure, and in encrypted type of situations. And so it kind of depends on the application and sensitivity of data when that is needed or not.
Okay. That's very, very interesting. Another, on the practical level, Alex, does Summit integrate with wearable tech? I mean, I think nearly everyone in this room has probably got an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or an Oura Ring. These are very popular now. Does Summit integrate with these devices?
It does. We have a Apple Health Kit integration on our iOS app. And so you can turn that on and then your coach will recognize relevant activity. And so, for instance, when I have one of my goals to be running frequently and on a running plan, my coach would recognize my runs coming in. And what was cool about that is it made the coach very proactive. It's me notification, great job on the run, etc. And so, we integrate there, and that powers some like proactiveness and just helps again with context and memory for the coach.
Okay, very interesting. So, looking back at the success stories you've had with the platform, Alex, what are the top 5 uses for Summit? Are they diet, weight loss, motivation, etc.? Do you have enough data on that now?
Yeah, I would say so. So again, some is kind of like holistic across different areas of your life, but what is common is typically, what's very common is people have some sort of like health or wellness related goal. And so again, it might be weight loss, that might be exercising more frequently, better sleep, etc. Oftentimes, people also have kind of a career or business type of related goal, and then like relationships, hobbies, etc. So there's kind of a long tail of that. But what's common is people will have a few different goals across those areas of their lives, and then they're using Summit for that accountability, that motivation, that ongoing support towards those goals. So like me personally, I'm using Summit. My goals are around being healthy, mentally fit, physically and mentally fit, around relationships, around career. And talking to our users, we've got users across so many different industries. Last week I was talking to someone who's a writer, and they're using Summit to help them in terms of their scripts and staying consistent to schedule, because as a writer, your days are very non-structured. And so they use Summit for that. Talked to someone recently who is a video editor, and they have these very complex projects and so many different people they're working with, and they use Summit for kind of helping organize thoughts and just like kind of stay sane with that. We have a lot of people who run their own businesses. I kind of run into the gamut. I think that's the power of Summit and technology like this, is it can really help across whether you're a young adult just out of college trying to work on career stuff, or someone who is in mid-late career and is transitioning or focus on other things. Yeah, it's just a couple of different areas of where Summit is used. I would say in terms of like how Summit is used in particular, it's very common that people use Summit in the morning to plan their days. So when they first wake up, they open their app, they can talk to their coach and get a plan and say, hey, coach, here is what I'm trying to get done today. Just having someone say that to think through things, ask some questions. Okay, where might you get blocked, etc. It's really helpful. And then throughout the day, people are typically checking in with their coach. The coach can send reminders and be proactive. And so it might check in with you later on and said, hey, Alex, looks like you wanted to go for a run today in the afternoon. How did that go? How was it? And so that's where that accountability really comes in. And then again, to end and wind down the day around, hey, here's how the day went. Let's plan tomorrow, and maybe help you wind down and reduce some of that stress before going to bed, just knowing you have a plan for the next day. So again, Summit is pretty general across those areas. But again, I would say typically health, fitness, wellness, people have a lot of goals there, kind of career, then relationships, hobbies, etc. And then really that accountability in the morning to start your day, to end your day, and then kind of throughout the day based off what you're doing.
Are there any success stories that come to mind that you've gotten from users about how it's helped them, or things that are really remarkable to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of specifics, but just in general, we get a lot of great feedback that says Summit like truly helped me stay accountable to my goals. And I'm trying to think like specific ones to relate. Someone climbed Mount Everest for the first time with Summit or something to that degree. I would say just like more in general, because the use cases are quite varied. I think the general consensus is I'm getting better sleep now because I'm more consistent with my schedule. I'm feeling more mindful. I'm getting more done in the day, the type of deal. So I'd say those have been more of the stories, but we should definitely get more. I know there are specific ones that we could pull. We should probably capture those in the future. That'd be pretty cool, just seeing like what's been accomplished with something.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that would be really great.
Yeah. Alex, I think you answered this question pretty well, but just to reiterate, when you're looking at the key habits or mindsets of successful users, and I'm paraphrasing, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that they really have to make it part of their day. It could be like any other tool. It could be like an exercise bike you get at home, and you end up being the clothes horse. You have to integrate it into your day. It can just sit there otherwise. So successful users really help implement it to make it a success. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah. And I think you want to start running or you want to start biking, say you buy the cycle and just sits there and gathers dust. So yeah, I think it's like a common challenge with any product or habit or goal, and why people set New Year's resolutions they never follow up on. So yeah, I think that to some degree with Summit, there's things we can do in terms of we need to make it really easy to use, and like how can we make it such that the first time you download Summit and get logged in, how do you have like a wow moment? How do you have that first experience? You're like, oh my gosh, like I see the potential of it. That's really critical. So really that first day and that first week, how can you have those really great moments where you're like, I get like it clicks for me. So that's really important. And then also the why is important, right? Why are you coming in and using Summit? Like, why do you want to do this? So if we can help tease that out to people as well, that's can also be very motivating. So yeah, I think there's those software things we can do in terms of those wow moments, making it easy to use. And, really after that first week of using Summit, hopefully people are set up well for success in that regard and they kind of know what they're doing there.
What do you think the future of your technology is, or where you see AI going, AI in health?
Yeah, I would say in general, I mean, AI is like here to stay. I think it's a transformative technology and it's amazing in a lot of ways, right? I think on the same side, like there are use cases that I think we're figuring out and still learning about. So we're definitely much living in this like future world, which is really exciting. I would say that just keep an open mind on things right now. I think even when we just look back over the past year of how things have changed, they've been very dramatic and I think will continue to change. And I think what's also exciting is, I feel like we're just still scratching the surface on what the impact of these technologies can be. And so I'm excited for the Summit, but also the industry as a whole. And I think the more people who, are familiar with AI and use cases and stuff like that, even if you don't have a technology background per se, I think that it's just going to be integrated everywhere. And so, yeah, I think I'm super optimistic on the future. I'm excited about what all is to come. And I'm excited to be playing a small part in trying to make that.
I have a kind of a curiosity in terms of there must be AI, there were different layers. Are you cooperating with any of the big producers or language models? Or you built everything yourself?
So we're leveraging kind of the standard like language models that you've heard of. So with OpenAI and Anthropic, and then we're doing a lot on top of that to make it specific for coaching and then specific like proactiveness and memory and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's a spectrum. There are situations and times where, it makes sense to use your own model or to do what's called fine tuning in terms of taking one of these models and making it very specific for your own use case and data. So again, it's kind of like a spectrum. There are like situations that work for very general. And there are, if you're asking, we don't need to get into that, but yeah, it's kind of a spectrum in terms of when you use one of these and how you manipulate them.
Well, have any of the users told you that it did not help them? That the AI models didn't help. And if so, how do you research that to figure out why that might have happened?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no product's ever going to have perfect, like everyone uses it and it's like this, what didn't change my life, etc. Yeah, we get a lot of feedback from users. We try to send emails to every single user. We have surveys and things that go out as well. And so we get a lot of data in that regard. Some common patterns, like one challenge you talked about, how do you get someone set up well? if someone picks a goal they don't care about, for instance, like you just kind of tried and like, whatever, I'll meditate every day, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a common failure pattern, because then you're missing that why, right? Because it's like, what I mean, so that's a failure pattern. Another failure pattern is just like we haven't done a good enough job on user education or onboarding, where you're wanting to use it, but maybe it's confusing, or you hit like a bug or a glitch and it like kind of gives you the, hey, this isn't quite it. Another one is like, as a coach, the memory is really important, but also it's really hard to get right. And if you're like, I told you this, but wait, now you don't remember. And so there's a little bit of that, like the uncanny valley, if you're familiar with that term, where this thing sounds like a coach and a human in a way, but then if like, it says misspelled my name or like misremember something, you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's actually not. So yeah, I think there's like a variety of reasons like that, but we spend a lot of time on the product, just like iterating on it and taking feedback and improving it. And so we try to stay really close to our users and understanding that. I think Dave can attest to that. I try to be pretty responsive on making changes and things aren't working the way they're supposed to. But yeah, I think we're also trying to figure out too, like who, even it's like upstream of marketing, right? Like who are the right people to target and how should we talk about Summit, right? Is it an AI life coach? Is it an AI coach? Is it an accountability partner? So I think all those things have an impact on someone being successful or not with it.
Interesting.
I have a comment on this, on the drill side, because in human motivation, I kind of think that even those, the person that you kind of found a little funny, I think actually telling us a little bit more about motivation. So even if you really 99% of the time, you want them to yell at you, you want that little 1%, a little tap on the shoulder. And that's even more variable. It's a little bit like self-inflicted Stockholm syndrome. You want water, but then you want them to say something nice to you. It's just a comment.
I like that one, Ken. Self-inflicted Stockholm syndrome.
One thing that's interesting for me is the coach I'm using actually it's called Future Alex. So I've gone in and defined like where I want to be like 10 years from now, and gone through and kind of said, here are my values, here are my principles, here's like how I kind of envision my life to be. And that's like my like coach personality that I use and talk to. And it actually has my voice as well. Like I've kind of recorded my voice and it like clone. And that's been really fascinating because, and this has happened for other people as well, where there's kind of like that intrinsic motivation, identity, right? We know that from like research in terms of like asking identity. It's like, oh, you don't want to go for a run this afternoon. Well, who do you want to be? Oh, I'm a runner. I'm a healthy person. Okay. Like, and what would that person do? Okay. They would go for a run. And so I think that's another kind of interesting, like edge of motivation in psychology here, which is like, for me, at least, I'm like, okay, I'm motivated to be someone I want to be in the future. And so how do my actions today kind of relate and change or impact that? And so I think that's been interesting. I don't know the answer to that yet. It's just kind of an interesting thing we're like noticing a little bit, which is like, there's a thread here too, which is like, how do you help people be motivated by helping them realize who they want to be? And then kind of surfacing that back to them on an ongoing basis. And like hearing yourself, it's one thing to like, but like hearing yourself tell yourself like, it's tricky, but it's like really motivating. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I can see it having a big impact. Our friend, a mutual friend, Richard, Dr. Vincent Rombell, who's a physical therapist.
Yes.
He said how many pieces of paper has he given clients to go home and do these rehab exercises daily? And those pieces of paper probably in the trash can outside his not far away. So something like AI would be really valuable, I think.
Totally.
With that, because you can't possibly get the human element every day to motivate.
Right. I think Dr. Kinney was saying too, right? Like there's like a hybrid solution here, which is really nice, right? Where you have like a professional, where it's like a physical therapist, right? Okay, here's the plan. And then you have the AI, which is then kind of that like, I'm going to call it the nagging layer, but that accountability layer. And then there's something powerful where the technology can then surface to the physical therapist, like, hey, like Alex isn't doing his exercises, right? And that can be a kind of a nudge then. So I think that's the other thing with what we've seen here is like some people kind of want that, like, I want it to be the AI, but I kind of want that, like, I want to know that there's like a person that's like kind of like monitoring a little bit. And that can help scale, right? I think the effectiveness, whether that's like a physical therapy program, where as a physical therapist, you can't be texting someone every single day, right?
No,
You're like,
absolutely.
your assistant does that and then surfaces you like, hey, cool, here's what's happening or whatnot. Then, I think that could be a very effective way of doing this as well. And so I think that's with Summit, we're more of like a pure AI solution, but I think it's natural and logical that these like hybrid solutions really get you like the best of both worlds in some scenarios and use cases.
After our guests left the recording, our host continued the conversation, sharing their reflections and key takeaways. I thought that was really interesting.
It was very interesting, actually. And I've got to confess, I did go onto that website after our last talk, and I got the thing, but that's about the last. It's like that exercise bike in the corner, but it really is. You've got to say, hey, that's not going to do everything for you. You've got to do something. We'll do something now.
You have to make some commitment yourself. You can't.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just can't on your own. And again, it goes where it's good is that it's another tool that actually can have somebody sort of tap you on the shoulder gently or force you, depending on the kind of person, and get you to do those things. Now, he said an interesting thing that he created an AI that was his voice.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Because the other interesting thing is one thing for your coach or your other person who you respect, then you need to do this or you need to do that. It's another thing to hear yourself saying to yourself on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Your ass. No.
Yeah.
That's very different. And so in one way, it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
It goes back to what we've all said. You, the individual, there has to be some degree of willingness and commitment.
Yeah, you've got to be at the end, it's up to you. Yeah.
But if you don't do it, it's still on you. And it doesn't.
Yeah, sure.
You look
But
back.
Dave, have you found it's helped you? Have you been using it?
I mean, it's helpful. I think like anything, it's an arrow in the quiver. It's not by itself. And there are a lot of variables.
Cool. Yeah. It's not going to get the job for you. You still got to interview and still got to,
It's definitely been helpful. I use it for different things. I use it to help me write cover letters and just my resumes. And I had some issues. And I worked with Alex and they made some changes. Like it would only do it turned out like 1,500 characters. So I would write something, then it would respond, then it would stop. And then I said, okay, you cut off here. And then I'd piece it together until it got to the full response and they changed the character limits. Yeah. And then he helped me understand because it only has memory for a certain number of questions, apparently. And then that's why I said, well, I don't want to have to re-educate this coach every 50 questions or whatever. So they said, okay, we have this foundation thing I was talking about. I uploaded different copies of my resume. So it already knows, it has some permanence of knowledge. But I think it's definitely helpful. One thing that really struck me was that it wasn't judgmental. It just looked, this is what you did. And then, okay, what are we going to do now? Okay, let's think, okay, that's fine. It doesn't say that's fine. It doesn't say anything. It's okay. Here's where we're going to go forward from this point. And I appreciate that. I never had a human being that I'd feel comfortable having that kind of conversation where it would have that kind of response.
But there's also the other side of that. I mean, Dr. K is the least judgmental person I know, but I'm sure as a physician, people almost feel, I don't want to disappoint Dr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
I haven't lost the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With the weight I need to lose. So I'll cancel my appointment for another 6 weeks. I'm sure
I know that happens. That must happen.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But like he mentioned earlier, you using the example of the drill sergeant who basically the person just finished running 20 miles and you would think, even if he's going to say you can do another 6.5 miles, before but you should say, great job. You did a good job with that 20 miles. Congratulations, etc. Because sometimes for a lot of us, what we want is acknowledgement that the effort that we put
Yeah.
That someone, because we know it, having done it, we feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
Always help somebody who's on the other side, or they see you and they haven't seen you in a while and it looks like you lost weight.
Mm.
And so they may never tell you that you lost weight. All they'll say is, you look good. You look really good. It's so good seeing you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Which allows that person to, I said, that positive energy that we all need. Because, the person might, and Mike, you see this with people who you go through work or who reach that plateau.
Yeah.
They've done as much as they can do with this particular routine, and they're no longer gaining anything. So they're not any faster, or they can't do as many reps or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's when that human touch comes in, saying, look, okay, this is where you are now. What do you have another goal, or is your goal still the same? Did you? Because sometimes you just open that door where there's always been the thought process, but because a person never felt about going beyond this point, don't realize that, gee, I could actually go further.
It really has been a fascinating conversation. I'm sure the other Musketeers also have had their aha moments, as I have, listening to you and just thinking how it can be incorporated into our lives, especially with my trusty Apple Watch. So it's been really great talking to you, Alex, and we're excited about the future of wellness with AI at the helm and Summit, of course. So to our listeners, we hope this episode has inspired you to think differently about how technology can enhance your wellness journey. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe to Wellness Musketeers and share this episode with anyone interested in health, wellness, and productivity. Your support helps us continue creating impactful content. We'd love to hear from you. Send your questions or ideas for future episodes to davidmliss@gmail.com. Until next time, stay well.